there are new regulations. They are basically criminalizing dissent, right? This is something that we recognize from history, right? The utilization of, the terrorist, the whole, THROWN of the Govy, right? The whole domestic TT, right? That whole thing, it's not new. It's not new, right? In order to remove dissent, you have to criminalize it. And this is why it's so dangerous for blue state governors, particularly, to say that, unlike the federal, we're going to follow the law. What is the law, right? Because authoritarian law does not remove constitutional law, right? Federal law does not supersede constitutional law, even when the courts position as such, because if the Constitution is the law of the land, then even the SCOTUS cannot remove fundamental law without Article 5, right? That's the amendment clause, right? I'm not saying that it matters in regards to what they're going to do, right? But it matters in regards to how you and me know that what we're doing is lawful, is constitutional. Me expressing my speech, whether written, whether voice, particularly things that have nothing to do with go do something illegal, right? And when it comes to traditional illegal, I'm not talking about don't criticize this administration because that's no illegal. No, right? We have to be capable of utilizing the constitutional avenues that we have in order to maximize on resistance, right? And that's somehow eventually going to move to non-traditional, right? Which can have much more of a gray zone. But what the federal is doing is beyond the gray zone, right? So it's either you're going to resist or you're going to allow them to pick people out, the very people who will be the ones protesting to defend you, right? Because that whole poem, first they came for X, but the federal is above the state, it is true and it is now. Right? So when it comes to my content, the fact that my primary was, permanently banned without any fucking strikes, without any fucking warnings because of, covering Federalist 28, it's giving me a recognition as to what content I'm going to provide here. I am now in other projects that have to do much more with action that's not going to be here. My clapper is much more unhinged. The things that would probably get me, BANNED here. So do follow me on Clapper if you have that. It's Sengayo as well. But ultimately, for here, what I feel is the best way forward is truly maximizing on that speech in order to be capable of removing your anxieties of resisting. And that will be done through a variety of, formats, right? In regards to helping you be capable of understanding that what you think is a threat now has historically been used as a threat. So it's not like it's something new. I feel like a lot of Americans are like, oh no, this is something really bad, and it is bad, right? But it's not something that has never been done before. It's a playbook that has old ass time, right? And the fact that you may be scared and you're like, I can't even say anything anymore, we're cooked. That's what they want you to think, right? Because they tell you the federal is above the state, so we can do whatever we want. That's not true. It's not always above the state, right? But they don't want you to know that, which is exactly why my first primary was banned, right? I had over 18,000 followers. And that was banned because I positioned that reality. That is true within our fundamentals. Alexander Hamilton positioned as much. John Locke supports that, English philosopher, which is critical to how we were built as a nation, right? So the fact that they don't want you to recognize the other parts of American constitutionalism is a problem, right? They tell you under the Federalist Society that they want the judges to judge according to the Constitution, not how the Constitution should be, right? Except when it's due process, except when it's birthright citizenship, except when it's equal protection clause rights, except when it's the purse belonging to Congress, which is what Federalist 78 positions, let me tell you. The executive, so POTUS, not only dispenses the honors, but holds the sword of the community. To defend the community, right? Foreign policy, not necessarily domestic, right? It can, but domestic shouldn't be your enemy, right? The legislature not only commands the purse, but prescribes the rules by which the duties and rights of every citizen are to be regulated. So how is it the policymaking is under the executive? How is it that SCOTUS is allowing the executive to remove the purse from the Congress? The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction either of the strength or of the wealth of the society, neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend upon the aid of the executive arm, even for the efficiency of its judgments, which really tells you why they said as much in the birthright, right? Because they're like, well, technically, we don't really know if we have the authority of enforcement, which tells us what? The United States Constitution, because Article 3 is incomplete, is insufficient, right? And what does this tell us, right? That we have to go out of it in order to solve this. That's it.